Hello, friends, and welcome to episode 140 of Discourse in Magic with Zivi Kivi. Now, Zivi Kivi is a kids entertainer by day, but by night, or rather his secret identity, is he's behind many of the most incredible resources for magicians and kids entertainers. So let me quickly tell you, he runs classes and a podcast for kids entertainers. He runs classes and a podcast for balloon twisting, and he purchased and runs classes as well as manages the Magician Business podcast, which is one of the podcasts that got me started in doing magic full time, as well as having this podcast, starting this and making this. So much of what he does is interesting to me personally, but what was really cool is he knows so much about being a full-time magician, and he gave so much advice about marketing, about how to spend your time wisely, about mistakes that he's made, and about just simple things. Like if you just listen, he's got so many little different pieces of advice that could really make or really advance your magic career. So if you're a performer, if you're a full-time entertainer, or if you like that kind of thing, you're going to love this episode. Here it is, episode 140 with the incredible Zivi Kivi. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Discourse in Magic. My name is Jonah, and we're here with a very special guest, someone who is quite interlaced into many of the things that I'm doing in terms of magic and podcasting and business and sort of the way that that's developed for me. I'm going to introduce him as all of the many things that you may have known him from, which is he runs the Kids Entertainer Academy, the Balloon Artist College, the Magician Business podcast. There's a Kids Entertainer podcast. It's just the Balloon Artist podcast. He's got so much magic and information and balloon artist and business, and it's just all of the right information for you. We are here with the incredible and very brilliant Zivi Kivi. How are you?
Hey, Jonah, thank you so much for having me. I feel excited about sharing some information about topics that I really love, like business and magic. And meeting a fellow magician and a fellow podcaster is a real treat for me. So thank you so much for having me.
I'm super excited, and one of the amazing things about having a podcast, one of the selfish things really is that I get to interview people about things that interest me at the time. So this is one of those interviews which is kind of selfish because, we share a lot of the things that we do in terms of the podcast and magic. And we're going to talk a little bit about that and a little bit about how podcasting has really affected you and your magic and your business. So let's start at the very beginning of how you got started with magic or maybe really performing. So how did that start with you?
Wow. Well, it started actually when I was a software developer in Japan. I live in Israel. I was sent to Japan for a customer, and they have magic tricks in toy shops. I had this weird habit of buying toys for unborn children at the time. I was like married, but I didn't have any kids. But I had this thing where I go into toy stores and buy toys. I guess I was buying them for me, but I just said that I was buying it for my unborn kids, and they had a magician on a DVD player doing the invisible deck, and I was looking at the DVD. I didn't know any Japanese. He didn't speak any Japanese. He was, performing it in a way that you could understand, and I was mesmerized, and I was thinking like, whoa, I can pay like the equivalent of $20 and learn how to do that. And I want to do that. I want to pay. Take my money. And I bought my first magic trick, and then the DVD started to play a second video and another magic trick, and it was one of those decks that changes colors or something like that. And immediately I said, "Oh, I take my money again. Like, here's another $20." And I stopped myself with that. Took the two tricks. On my way back to Israel, I was flying through France, like with Air France, and I was like suddenly understanding that all the instructions in the pack of cards are in Japanese, and I can't really learn that. So I found a guy on the airplane that knows English and Japanese, and he translated it, and we basically learned together. Like I was holding the deck and I was asking him like this, and he was
Wow.
like, "Yes, yes," and we both were stunned when the magic worked, and
Wow.
it was really an experience. And ever since then, I just got to be bitten by the bug. I fell in love totally by doing magic tricks. The next time they sent me to Japan, I was ready. I bought tons of magic tricks there. I performed in the streets. Actually, every weekend, I will go outside in the streets of Tokyo and just perform there and see. They didn't speak English, I didn't speak Japanese, but through all sorts of like a levitating handkerchief or anything visual, basically, I would actually bask and with a hat try to eventually get tips for my magic. And I remember back then the first few dollars or few yen or whatnot, I don't even remember, like I was so excited about the money that I've earned from doing magic in the streets, that it was clear that this is like a very special way of living.
Wow, that is, I mean, that's an incredible story. And your first experience with magic was this incredible experience where you like learned it at the same time, with someone, which sounds really cool. And now you obviously have such a big hand in learning and teaching and different things like that. When was that? How many years ago was that?
So that was actually 12 years ago, and it took me 8 additional years to build myself and build my skills, build my business, and slowly gradually see an opportunity to become a full-timer. So I became a full-timer 4 years ago, basically.
Wow. Okay. So that's really interesting. So it's been sort of like a 12-year journey. 4 years ago you came a full timer, and I'm really glad that you put that in perspective for maybe a lot of people who are young and starting, and are seeing a little bit of successes but not a lot. And it's just interesting that you're saying like, yeah, here's a 12-year window where I only became full time in the past, or in the final 4 years so far, right? And it's just sort of illuminating to obviously the challenges, but also, and soon we'll talk about some of the heights that you've been able to reach and some of the successes in that period of growth. So that's really exciting. And there's another sort of introduction or beginning that I want you to talk about, which is the beginning or the introduction of when you started listening to podcasts. And before I hear some of the things you want to mention about it, we were talking before the interview about podcasting, obviously, and you mentioned to me about that being a beginning. And I had been thinking about that since you mentioned it. And I really realized how much listening to podcast was such a turning point for me, for the thought that I could do magic full time, and approaches to business. And it was sort of my first foot into the business world, because I was kind of listening to ebooks, every day, because I was listening to so many of them. So it was really impactful for me. So talk about it for you. What was that like, and how did that start to change things?
So the problem for me was that once I became a full timer, I had to produce right away. I had 3 kids. One of them was a baby who is 6 months old. Now I had the full support of my wife. She knew that we will have to um, spend less money for some time, and we believed in my ability to build up my magician business. That's funny, but it was hard, and I had to. I thought that I had figured out marketing and business from working in the corporate world, but and running like project management. I ran projects for $7 million a year by myself, and I thought that those skills will help me. And it turned out that marketing a magician is so different than marketing, software solutions. So I really had to sharpen up my pencils and my skills and figure it out as fast as possible. So I went on a rage of learning. I love learning, and I started with YouTube, and I tried to use everything about search engine optimization that was out there, and that yielded some results. But as many know, SEO, search engine optimization, that's not a quick way to to get gigs. That's like a long term investment. Um, and so I needed to become better, faster, and one thing led to the other, and through networking and through making connections in the business world with other magicians, with other entertainers, I've stumbled upon podcasts, and specifically Magician Business Podcast was my first podcast that I ever heard to that I ever heard and listened to, and it was just mind blowing suddenly to listen to people that understand um, concepts that were so important and that I was so lacking with those concepts. Things like understanding the customer needs and serving the customer, and many other things that are related to marketing, like understanding benefits and um, stuff like that. That totally changed my life, and I literally can look at the last 4 years and mark the day that I started listening to podcasts, where suddenly all of my marketing started to shift and walk. Literally, like my SEO was way better. My AdWords was working suddenly. I improved my sites in all sorts of way. My business grew by much in that moment. And the second bit that happened to me later on was, when I started also to produce a podcast back then in February 2016, the Balloon Artist podcast. That was the second milestone in my bio, from my point of view, where I started to up my game back into the business world in a way.
Okay, so there's a few different things that are really interesting to me. The first is the Magician Business Podcast was one of the first, if not the first two podcasts that I ever listened to, which was also a turning point for me. For me, it was when I was in fourth year university, sort of deciding what I was going to do. And it opened my eyes that I could become a full-time magician, because there was like all of these lessons and I was learning them. And I was like, I know how to do this, right? There's recipes and stuff, there's solutions. So that really opened my eyes, and something that we'll touch on in a minute. But another one of the podcasts that I listen to, which I know that you listen to as well, or at least is somewhere in your wheelhouse, is Pat Flynn's podcast, the Smart Passive Income podcast. And what's interesting is, from starting to learn from Magician Business Podcast, I also was able to open my eyes and ears to business and learning business from entrepreneurs today. There's a lot of solo entrepreneurs or people that run 1 or 2 or 3 person companies, which means the things that they write about are very pertinent to the life of a magician. They talk about, the effectiveness of their time, or how efficient their time is, how they spend it when they wake up, how they spend their days, how much hours they spend doing sales versus working on art, and all this different stuff starts coming into play. And these are things that obviously I'm sure you speak about and is in the Magician Business Podcast, but now we start to learn from other people in the world of business. So I wanted to ask if there's other people outside of the world of magic, either in podcasting or in business, that have opened your ears, and that maybe some listeners can head to, either podcasts or books or something like that, so that they can maybe see some of the different lights that we've seen in those lenses.
So I started with Smart Passive Income and Pat Flynn as well, and there's really good podcasts like Social Media Examiner, but I think that these days I notice how there's a couple of books that are a little bit more like it's an acquired taste, because they don't give you recipes. They challenge you to create a reality in your life, and I really resonate with them these days. And those are The One Thing and Willpower Doesn't Work. Willpower
The
does.
One Thing and Willpower Doesn't Work. And
Yeah,
who are the authors of those?
let me just fetch that from my Audible account. So The One Thing is by Gary Keller.
Gary Keller, okay.
Yeah, and then Doesn't Work by Benjamin Hardy.
Benjamin Hardy.
And it's funny, like I'm listening for the second time for The One Thing I just listened to it today on my way to a gig, and it just blows my mind how you really need to I, the only word that comes to mind is to mature into those principles in business and in the way that you arrange your habits and your life and your business. And it's something that I feel is key to infuse your business ideas from outside the world of magic. Like, I know it's a little bit like I'm shooting myself in the leg, because I also teach business, and I should say stuff like, come to me, I will teach you business in my schools, which is true. But I really believe that it's important to learn from just successful business people and from people that manage to get stuff to work these days as well.
I totally agree with you. And, one of the things that I think this podcast is a good, thing for is to give people a resource for things that are maybe starting to be, or this is, one of the ways that it's tending, but resources of things that are a little bit adjacent to magic, but have really helped people out. So I think, this perfect, they now have one or two different business books that have really helped move you along. And I know that there's, business people that, that I've mentioned on this podcast, as well as principles that I've mentioned. Like, a really simple one is validating ideas first, right? So that's a simple idea that I learned from the world of business, where you have to ask 100 people or whatever if they want your new thing before you worry about making it. And that's an example of something that came from the world of business, and many others. So like you just said, it's really important to learn from a variety of places. So before we dive into business sort of heavy, because I know we're going to talk a lot about that. I know you have uh, obviously so much incredible advice because you have some quite successful courses about it. But I wanted to talk to you a little bit first about your magic and your balloon artist in terms of what you do when you're performing. So I almost want to hear why did you pick those specifically? Is it something about it being a financially great industry? Is it something about you loving kids or loving balloons? Or talk to us about that industry and why somebody who is in their beginnings in maybe magic or performing, might be sold on picking one of those industries instead of, now when you ask a magician, they're like, oh, corporate. Everyone thinks they're a corporate magician. So I'm really a big fan of picking specific niches and obviously succeeding in them very well. So talk to me about these two these two balloon and sort of kids entertainment, and why that's been so successful or fun for you.
So actually, I'm not one of those people that preach, hey, everyone should do balloons. I don't think that's the truth. But the balloons has a lot of things in common with magic in the sense that they are addictive. It's the same type of an experience where you have a bug and you just want to learn more magic all the time, and you're fascinated by it. So the same thing, I don't know what they put into that latex, but it's just addictive, and
Right.
you really enjoy getting those smiles. Your brain rewires to get that immediate gratification from making some miracle from balloons and presenting it to kids. And and
Just like magic.
exactly. In fact, like, if I think about if I found a time machine and I was like forced to go back in time to some time in the past, and I had to take something with me, I would take a pack of balloons and not a pack of magic tricks, like a pack of cards. I would prefer taking balloons with me, because when I do balloons, it feels and it looks like real magic. And when I perform magic, I feel like I'm doing magic tricks, I'm entertaining, which is fun and important for me. But at the same time, it's not as magical, like the skill level that I've achieved through doing balloons. And like, I was lucky to have a mentor that lives very close to where I live, so I've learned from the best of the best in Israel. And anything I do, I try to grow and be better. So like human beings, that's like the human nature, but it's something that I really care about. So I became a very proficient balloon artist. I just did. And that, one thing led to another, and magician business was already there. So I was, thinking to myself, hey, if I'm going to start a podcast, I might as well talk about something that I am passionate about, and and that is balloons, right?
I love it. And one of the things that's so clear is some of the business aspects that you learn, so much so that you started with your bug for magic, and then obviously you had a little bit of a bug for balloons, and then you listen to your audience. You're very clear about not forcing the one that you want and saying, you know what, I really notice how strong balloons is, and now you're open to doing that because that's what your audience wants, and you enjoy doing it as well. And it's another thing that meshes together. And obviously there must have been a turning point or a moment where you must have said, okay, I got to try this, right? Or okay, I'm going to start learning this. And then it ended up being fun, which is great. But it's good that you listened to your audience, and that you grew because of it, and didn't say, oh, they like balloons, ugh, I don't want to learn, you know what I mean, something like that. You accepted it, and grew and had fun with it.
Yeah, and really, it's a matter of understanding who are you. Who are you? That's such a key principle in business. And if you know what your passion is, that's one of your biggest assets. Seriously, like the clarity that you get from knowing what you love to do, that's amazing. If you love to do card tricks, oh man, do card tricks, teach card tricks, invent card tricks. If you love to do balloons, then do that. And if you're not sure, then find it. That's like really one of the ways to find it is by listening to podcasts like Magic in Discourse, and like this is the type of things that you can resonate with certain people better, and you can find where your heart is. And when you know that this is what you love to do, then it's really powerful stuff. The world just responds better to you when you're walking in an authentic way, and when you care so much about something.
And things really start simplifying in terms of your business when it all comes down to you trying to maximize the amount that you get to do that one thing that you really like to do, and how much you get to do it, and all the different interesting places that you could do it, for all the interesting people and all the different ways. And like you said, if you like card tricks, or right now I'm personally falling in love with the idea of doing a close-up show. I've been doing it for a while here and there in different places, and I'm doing more of it, in terms of I'm trying to get booked out doing more of it. And that's an effort that I have to go through. When people are on the phone with me, I have to sell them on this thing, which they've never heard of, but I love it. And I think it's a great, product, and I love doing it. And it comes from doing so many different types of performing, strolling magic, stage magic, and then trying that and falling in love with it for some reason, and saying that that's the thing that I want to do. And things sort of start simplifying when the things that you want to do more of. So I love that idea of being open. Before we get off the topic of sort of kids magic and balloons, I know there's a lot of people that listen to the podcast that do a lot of or are full-time performers focusing on kids magic, and I know that I don't have a lot of information for them. So is there any sort of quick tips or quick bits of advice that you can say in terms of the magic world or the entertainment aspect of working with kids, that someone can take from this episode, if that's a world that they either are working in now or planning to work in, or something of that nature?
Well, it's really like a huge topic. Kids entertainment is a profession,
Of course, of
and
course.
there's so much that can be discussed about it. So what I would like to share with you, maybe just one quick tip
Beautiful.
about that, which might resonate with people if they are considering doing some kids magic, or doing more of that, and whether it's beneficial or not. So first of all, to put things into context, I charge the most, to the best of my knowledge, in my territory, Israel, in kids magic. And I'm not saying that to brag, and I might be wrong. There might be other people that are charging more, but I network with a lot of magicians, and I charge a lot, and I do that as a strategy to get, to be in alignment with who I am. I prefer to provide tons of value that is like very, very special and unique as a business, and then to charge a lot for it. And that's not necessarily right thing to do in every territory, and not necessarily the right thing to do in business wise. You might actually have um, a bigger revenue in a year, but I want to see my kids and I want to live my own life. But the reason why it's important for me to put this into context is that um, I really do have to go through a hurdle when I sell my show, because every single one of my customers knows that they were able to book someone cheaper. They know it.
Mm-hmm.
They when they
Mm-hmm.
call me, I'm not necessarily the first phone call. Sometimes I will be the first phone call, but the Israeli people will always compare prices.
Call
Yeah,
another or a third.
always,
Yeah.
always, always. It's like otherwise they feel like they've been screwed, and that's like their DNA forces them not to go into that situation. So it's really like a matter of understanding the importance of your sales skills. Now, basically, improving your sales skills, that's something that you can do actively. You can read books or listen to them by Grant Cardone, and you can, and there's the other books as well. I have like a full list of books. If you want, I'll send them to you about sales.
I'd love
Or
that.
I would be
Sure.
happy to do that. And I and for me, I just had to, even though my show is funny and great, and my backdrop is spectacular, and my balloons are amazing, and so like the customer gets huge value, and also all sorts of shticks like a video for the invitation, and a video for like summarizing the event, and all sorts of things that they get for their 700 US dollars for a 2 hour show. But um, I had to sharpen my sales skills in order to be able to perform with the package that I wanted to perform. And my tip is actually um, comes from a discussion I had just a couple of days ago when I discussed with um, a birthday owner, like a birthday business owner that had at its most 20 people working for her, uh, performing birthday shows that included magic and games and stuff like that. So I asked her, how did you reach the point where you were able to have 20 employees under you? Like that sounds amazing. I managed to sell my show for the most in my territory, and that's also amazing. But what did you do? And the answer, it was the same thing. Sharpen your sales skills, believe in what you sell. So like she basically laid out to me how um, she believes, and you could see in her eyes that she does. She believes that any kid that doesn't celebrate through her company is missing out on an opportunity in his life to live a better life, to be healthier, to grow up better. She's convicted that her service specifically is the right way to do it, and any other service is like destroying the mind of the young generation. Like, and so when the mom calls her, she's convinced very fast that she really does need to hire her and book her. And it's not about doing something salesy or pushy. It's not. It's all about your confidence level and the way that you talk, and to the way that you portray your brand. And the little details, they matter so much. So it's not about this one sentence. There's no one trick that I can give you, and
Of
it will
course.
work
Of course.
for everyone. But if you're struggling, we can talk about a few things that will help you. But one of them is the understanding that you have a muscle that is your sales muscle. How do if you know how to sell well, and how to sell yourself, and that muscle, you can work on it, you should work on it, and you should improve it, and you should come to any interaction with a customer or with a potential booker as if your service can change their lives, and it can.
I love that, and I like that so much of it has to do with the mentality of the approach, right? This isn't you saying, here's a script, here's a sentence, here's a line, say this. It's really just the mentality, and so many aspects of business and deciding to go full time, and aspects of that working and knowing how much time to put aside, and all of these different things come from minor or major switches in mentality. So I love that approach. And I also like that so much of this for you, because it's so similar for me, so much it comes down to the business and the sales, because it really dictates what you're able to do with your show. If people are paying you $20 for your show, then you can only invest so much and do so much and make it so amazing. And if people are giving you, $700 for your show, then you can do other things and you can use that money in different ways, and your business grows with it. So much of it has to do with getting shows and being obviously at least good enough to do the shows, but learning and getting better and booking more shows, and then learning the style that you work best with, and the type of people that you work best with, and the bookings that you work best with, and all the different areas like that. So I wanted to now dive a little bit into the business. So you had a whole bunch of 10 rules, percents, and hours and things. So I wanted to first hear about, what is the 10% rule?
So the 10% rule is something that I found out about it while doing marketing for my business, and that was all about how to scale what you do. And it started with automation, with automating my emails, stuff that I was actually exposed to through the Magician Business podcast, and uh, later on while doing some search engine optimization and some marketing on Facebook, and all sorts of pieces of information started to click and come into place and be aligned in front of me, and I started to notice how everything I do, I can do 10% more on whatever I did in order to get whatever I did so far, to get to kind of milk it and get more scalability, value that allows me to scale the effect of the initial thing that I did and help me in marketing. So maybe I'll give a couple of examples, because it's a little bit um, um, vague right now. So, like, just as a really naive example, if I've decided to sit down and drink a cup of coffee, and I I prepared that cup of coffee. That was what I did. Now the extra 10% might be that I will take a picture of that coffee and make a post on Facebook of that coffee, and a short story, and even tag someone. So, like, it will take me another minute after sitting down and preparing the coffee, and then getting just 10%. That's it, just extra 10% of time or effort, and I can get the same cup of coffee to help me with my marketing. So that was like a very naive example, but once you put on the eyeglasses of looking at everything and asking yourself what is the extra 10% I can do here, then suddenly amazing things reveal themselves to you.
So I need a little bit more clarity, because do you mean 10% more towards your marketing, or do you just mean, how can I be a little bit better about this thing?
No, I'm talking about specifically how to market yourself better, and
Ah,
so
cool.
it's not about improving your skills or something like that. It's just how can you leverage anything you do in business into some business value, into some marketing value. So
Okay.
for example, I've been known, and I even wrote an ebook about it, that if I arrive to a gig, I also invest an extra 10% of effort, of time, and like in a 2-hour gig, I will then later on work for like 20 minutes, or these days it's more like 10 minutes, and I will create a video that is summarizing the event. Okay, so that video is actually filmed by the dad usually, or if it's a corporate gig, the HR department is assigning someone that will film the show with my phone, and I edit it on my phone, like with an iMovie app, or with a Stoopflix on Android, and then that video I use it for marketing. I give it back to the customer as a gift or as added value, but I also use that video for my potential bookers, and I can show it to them and show them specifically from a company, that is their size, how the show looked like. Now, that's just 10%, just an extra 20 minutes or 10 minutes of work. But then you can apply the 10% principle again. So you're starting to um, after you develop your skills and you are good with something, you can develop, you can look at it again and find out, what else can I do with those videos, right? So another 10% would be to take a picture, a snapshot from the video, like to actually pause the video, take a snapshot from the video and take a picture. Now you have some pictures material that you can use for a thank you letter. And that is another thing that I do. I actually print out a thank you letter with pictures from the actual gig, and I send that like 3 weeks later to the customer to remind them again about how much fun we had. Now, I actually am in the point where I can apply another 10% later on. After doing that for some time, I can take all of those pictures and put them into some graphics that I can put in my marketing. Or I can edit the video. No, so like I took all the 10 videos of my last shows and edited like a 1 minute clip from that, with music and with like higher end production values. And so I wouldn't be able to get the raw material if I wouldn't apply first, the first 10% and the first 10%. And after you do that, there's more 10% that you can decide to do. Like, for example, you can boost a Facebook post. You can email it to your email list. You can call someone and tell them specifically, like your best customer. There's always some customers that books you a lot. So why not call them and say, hey, I want to send you a video of a show I did yesterday for this corporate company, for HP or for Intel or whatnot, and I want you to take a look. And what do you think about it? Like, so everything you do, there's one more thing that you can do actually. Just an extra percent that you can do, and you don't have to do the entire 60% right away. It's too hard and intimidating, but there's always something easy that you're either it's in your skill level, and that it will be easy for you to think about what is those 10%. And the more I looked for those 10%, the more I found opportunities for them.
I'm blown away by this idea because it's sort of a simple thing that you can do right before you're stepping into, I mean, not right before you step into a gig, but before you're starting something new, or when you see something new approaching, you can say, I'm ready, I have everything prepared. And then you stop for a second and you say, what's 10% more that I can do for my marketing? And just repeatedly asking that question sort of pokes you in the direction of your marketing working, just with your best guess at what you think is going to work for your marketing. Like, that's without knowledge, because you're just doing that over and over again and saying, like, how can I use this to help my marketing, and how can I take a moment and use this to help my marketing? So I love that, and I love the way that it keeps you mindful always in all of the magic that you're doing and focusing on and prepared for and worried about. It gives you a little way to be mindful about the marketing aspect as well.
Yes, and it's all about the details. It focuses on your successes. You did something, and that is why you have 10% extra. So it puts you in a situation where your actions mattered, and it also puts you in the position where you're focusing on the small details, and the small details build huge pyramids eventually and huge towers. So you just have to care about the small details, and as many details as you can comprehend and care about, and that will make you eventually a better marketer.
And I love the way that this is sort of open to anybody in any aspect of their magic. If you're performing or whatever you're working on in your marketing, you can always take a moment and say, like, what's 10% better? And how many times can you do that when you have just sort of to paint a picture for someone that's really clear, when you have a few hours available and you're looking at your computer and you're saying, oh, what should I do to help my magic? Oh, should I should I spend a little bit of time like looking at my website a bit and dabbling and trying to change some of the text there for a little bit, or maybe, or some of the things that are going to waste your time. A better, more direct thing to say is, how can I make this 10% better? Or how can I, and just be very focused about that. And I think it's a very easy way to come to a conclusion and start figuring out what a good next thing is for you to do. I love that.
Yeah, it's very practical, you know.
The next aspect here, the next 10 thing that you have is what's called the 10-hour principle. And before we dive into it, I just wanted to highlight one of the aspects that came out of the 10% rule, and that came out of some of the other things that you're mentioning, which is this idea of being more cognizant and conscious about how much time you spend on what, and how effective and efficient you are, and how much time you put into your business, and how much time you mentioned charging more for types of gigs because you wanted to spend more time at home. So just this ability to be conscious or open-minded about how you spend your time as a freelancer and as a magician is really, really important. So that's the thing I wanted to touch on, and then ask you to either talk about that and then maybe lead into talking about the 10-hour principle.
Yeah, the 10% principle. It's funny. Like I googled a lot about it and tried to look if someone was already mentioning it in this way. And there's like a book from 1980, which is mentioning a 10% rule, but not in the same context like I'm portraying it. So I think it's pretty original, and for me it works like magic. I actually wrote like a blog post of 5,000 words that explains and gives examples and stuff like that. So if you want, I'll send you a link, and people could go to your site and find that. And again, like the things that I mentioned here, some of them didn't came to me by mistake. They came to me from having to save my family and having to feed my 3 kids and my 2 dogs, and like to pay for the house and everything. And I had to work hard on finding stuff that work. But eventually, as I mentioned before, when I started podcasting, I kind of went back into focusing on the business side of things, which is not the business of entertaining, but the business of education. And I started to work with entertainers from all over the world, from Australia, from Canada, from the US, from the UK. I have a customer that I coach on the business level on in Malaysia. So like I literally work with over 50, closer to 65 people from like performers from all over the world. And I started to notice that all of the problems in the world, they are the same problems no matter where you are. Yes, there's different tactics that you will feel okay to use. Yeah, like in Canada, email marketing is very scary because they have rules about how how do you acquire an email by someone, and how to acquire the permission. And like these days with in Europe with GDPR and all of the privacy issues, again, these are territorial issues that you need to be aware of. However, in terms of the psychology of human beings, and in terms of the accessibility to information and the technologies that are available, that's pretty much the same. So I started to notice how um, I love marketing, and I'm looking for ways that my customers that are coming for me for advice, I'm looking for ways that they manage to work and to get results, because then I could use this information not just in my business but also in teaching my other customers that are coming to me for coaching. And I noticed that there are about 8 things that work, and and those 8 things, in short, stuff like search engine optimization, people get results from those 8 things. So AdWords, Facebook marketing, either paid or not paid, Instagram, email marketing and automation, champion building system tactics, like the stuff that I do with the video. So like stuff that are a little bit focused on building champions and raving fans, cold calls, or outreach in general, and other proactive ninja tactics. And it's really important for me that you don't think that the number 8, the other type of clause, it's not like anything. It's like if it's very proactive and very ninja style, then it will apply here. And that's stuff like networking, stuff like leveraging connections, personal connections, and stuff like that. And so those 8 things work, but the hard part was, and is for many people, um, which one of them should you do, right? um,
Right.
and that's when the 10-hour principle kicks in and comes into play. And it's just, I love this principle. It's just, it brings me to tear because it works. Because like I get people. Just a couple of weeks ago, I lectured about the 10-hour principle, and this magician, young magician, he's 21 years old, just was released from, like, in Israel there's mandatory army service, so he was released from the army. He started to perform. He's really motivated, and he did. He saw my lecture about the 10-hour principle and applied it, and came back to me a couple of days later saying, I only did Facebook marketing and got 4 gigs in 4 hours. So like he was so happy, and I was so happy for them. And so like the overarching principle is, do you want 10 extra gigs in the next 60 days? If you listen to this right now and you ask yourself, and do you want them, those 10 extra gigs in the next 60 days? If you do, then here's a very effective formula for you. And when I say the 10-hour principle, I'm not talking about the 10,000 hours principle, which is, by the way, an amazing idea, which is, if you do something for 10,000 hours, then you will become a master. If you want to do card magic and you want to be the best in the world, or at the level of the masters, you need to do 10,000 hours. Now, actually, that's very hard. So I'm not asking you to do 10,000 hours. That's not what the 10.
That's good.
Yeah. You might get there eventually, but you don't need to.
Mhm.
So the 10 hours principle is actually 10 hours a week. And the way this works is that you do 10 hours a week on one thing. You can change every week if you measured the results, and the results you got was not something you're happy about, then you can switch. Yeah. But you have to focus and get to that tipping point of efficiency and of productivity. And that tipping point, I found it from working with many performers from all around the world, is actually 10 hours. If you're working less than 10 hours a week, you will not get to the tipping point where people actually start to respond to you, where people actually start to notice you and remember you and get back to you. And anything I did and applied the 10 hours rule, the 10 hours principles of actually doing 10 hours of marketing within 1 week on that specific service or topic or style of marketing, without investing the 10 hours of work, you just don't get any results. Like, you do SEO for 2 hours, nothing. You do AdWords for 2 hours, nothing. Like, you're just wasting money and time.
Right.
Then you're going to Instagram and you're making 3 posts, nothing happens. Like, and you're frustrated because you listen to podcast or whatnot, and you think like, hey, I'm doing everything that other people are doing, but nothing gets results. And it's because you're not doing anything amazingly, and enough. You don't invest enough time in it to actually get to the results.
Wow. Okay. So there's so many different bits here that I want to talk about. So I'll sort of go backwards from the 10-hour principle, and then I'll talk about some of those marketing tactics. So the first is of that 10-hour principle. One of the things that I want to highlight is, especially if you're a full-time magician, is just a reminder that some people have full-time jobs. Obviously people listening to this, and they work 9 to 5. So this is, really what you're saying is, here's a recipe. Here's the number of hours you need to work on one marketing thing per week in order to commit to your business growing. And whether that ends up being 52 different marketing things a year, or 52 of the same thing if it's working, or whatever it is, it's a lot of hours that you're now putting in, in a year and in a week. And you're obviously making an impact and making a difference. So I love that. And it's a very simple way, tracking your hours. That's 2 hours a day. If you're doing nothing else but sitting with playing cards and working on your show just for fun, rolling around, whatever, you still can spend 2 hours working on, you know what I mean? Like, so that's a really simple way, and something that even I can take and just say, like, whatever marketing thing I'm working on this week, can I dedicate to it 10 hours? And it sort of helps solve the problem of quality or quantity. And the answer is both, right? If you have 10 hours to accomplish this amazing thing in a week, you can focus on making it both incredible and producing a lot of it, or producing it well, or, and all this different, and producing it in a large quantity because you're doing it week over week. So I love that. What happens with the fact that maybe some of these marketing things that you're trying to do would have to stack? So for example, I spend 10 hours one week working on my Instagram, and I'm like, wow, my Instagram is great. And then if I spend 10 hours the next week working on my email, then my Instagram starts to slack again, right? So I don't have Instagram for a whole month. And then I go spend the next week working on Google AdWords, but then my email stops, and those email people don't hear from me for another few months until I go back to spending a week on. So what do you do about that? Because some of the things in marketing, it always feels like you're drowning, or it's endless, or there's always more to be done. So how does that 10-hour principle, or what else do you have to sort of help handle that aspect of it?
So first of all, that's a really good question, and it reminds me of this principle of a multiplier. So in productivity, the principle of multiplying is when you want to be so efficient in what you do that you're actually saving time for the future. Like you're doing something now that will actually save you time in the future. That's what a multiplier does. He asks himself, not if this is what I'm doing now, is it important? Or is it urgent? He's asking, is it significant? Is it something that will help me later on to save time? And, a lot of the things that I've mentioned, you can automate. You can schedule Instagram, in those 10 hours for a
You
whole
6
month.
months. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah,
yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Now, and that will get you, a lot of results. But it's not just about that. Of course, you can automate stuff, you can schedule stuff, but it's also about getting to the point where you're better. So after you do, 2 weeks of 10 hours a week of Instagram, the next week, the third week, you can probably do everything in 1 hour
Right.
because you
You're not
already,
spending time learning or anything. You're just
yeah.
doing, and you're doing it well too. And you already have your systems and all of that.
Exactly. Your brain is already wired so that it's easy for you. We are not getting to the point where it's easy to do marketing. And we keep feeling like it's very, very hard for us. We just didn't do enough of it to get to the point where it's easy. And once it's easy, you get a lot of stuff done. So, and that, one more thing is that I really want people to measure. Like it's all about measuring the results. So if you actually put, Instagram as an example, and you spend 10 hours and you're getting suddenly an influx of followers, oh man, like stop doing AdWords and focus on something that started to work for you. And of course, the real measurement is how many shows you're getting down the road. That's, there's soft metrics and there's hard metrics, but definitely, listen to the world, listen to the numbers, to the people that you're talking with, and try to understand if it works or not. And if it's not something that is measurable, then stop it. That's actually related to the 10 mistakes that I did in marketing. And so, like, if you measure what you're getting out of those 10 hours, then then you will know what you should focus on. And I highly recommend you don't try to do all of the 8. It's really important that you don't try to do the entire 8. Like when you reach that level that you want to do the entire 8, it's probably after doing it for a few years and growing a team around you and growing systems around you and automations. And and you don't start with the whole 8. You start with 1 or 2 or maybe 3.
I love that. And my next question was going to be about automations and team building and just about opening people's eyes to it. But just to sort of summarize that aspect, if it's not something that I think we've ever spoken about, is that you've grown to such a level that you decide to hire somebody to work with you and do a certain aspect of it. And one of the key things that I learned in business is that you should be hiring someone to do a thing that you already know how to do or what it is because you've already learned how to do it. And even if you're hiring someone who's better than you, let's say you're hiring someone to build a website. You focusing on your website 10 hours a week for 2 or 3 or 4 weeks is going to make you so knowledgeable in your journey to hire somebody to help you with your website. Even if that's the thing that you're doing in your 10 hours, you're not hiring someone in one quick hour. You're going to waste your money the same way how, like you mentioned, spending 1 hour on Instagram isn't going to do anything or whatever the case may be. But if you spend 10 hours researching, then you might learn how to get your money's worth. And then that might be the way that you grow your team. So thinking about in the long term, growing and automating is a great thing to mention. And I love that. I wanted to talk about the 8 marketing tactics and just the highlight the thing that you mentioned about playing with the things that work for you. And if you find something that works, do it. And if it's not working, then stop doing it. And one of the things that's really important about the 10-hour rule mixed with those 8 marketing principles is the idea that you really have to give the next marketing idea that you're doing, whether it's email or Instagram or social media or Facebook ads or Google ads or SEO or anything, you have to give it an honest shot. And that's one of the aspects of the 10-hour rule that I liked. It's really floating to the surface here for me is that, you can't just say, oh, I made a website and nobody went to it and nobody hired me and I can't do this and this doesn't work, right? Because you'll even look back on it and say, I didn't give it an honest shot. You need to give it your all, give each marketing aspect, each new thing, like your all to try to see if it'll work. Because, and I always say this, is you're one marketing thing away from increasing your business by 20%, 25%, 30%, 50%, like just one new thing that you try has to hit for you to go, wow, oh, I didn't realize how amazing, phone calling could be or Facebook ad or whatever, whatever that could be. So just really keeping the eyes open to giving whatever marketing thing that you're trying, whatever it is, an honest shot is something that really was a highlight there for me.
I I call this failure marketing, and failure marketing is the idea where you need to plan for the failure. You need to embrace it that some of the things that you will try will not work. But how will you know which of the tactics you should invest more time and which of the tactics you should stop using? And you get there through giving the honest shot through the 10-hour rule, but also looking at the results. And what the list of 8 options, what it gives you is kind of like a fallback option. Like, okay, you did try Facebook marketing, you gave it like 2 or 3 slots of 10 hours of learning it really well and doing it, and you didn't see any results. Then go back to the list and see, oh yeah, I should probably try this or that. But don't try to do all of it in a mediocre level, because that won't work.
So just one more time, what are those 8 marketing tactics?
So it's SEO, AdWords, Facebook marketing, both paid and unpaid, Instagram, email marketing, which basically means going back to the people that already hired you and nurture them and get them to talk about you. Champion building system. Now that is, I wrote an ebook about how to create champions to your business, but basically get to the point of wowing customers so much so that they have to do the marketing for you. When if you get to that will work for you. Cold calls and outreach. And the 8th one is proactive ninja tactics. And proactive ninja tactics, again, you can call it networking, you can call it leveraging your strengths. We all hear from time to time on someone that was ballsy and went into the office and threw the table and showed a magic trick and was hired for 46 gigs. So like I don't want to I don't like if you actually plan, those PR stunts or those special proactive.
Viral Snapchat video or whatever random thing you want to do, like whatever interesting random viral, marketing tactic that you want to try. Even just the thought, like, never mind the fact that we know that the other 7 of those are proven. Just the thought that once a week you could try a new ninja marketing thing for 10 hours would probably do incredible damage. But the good news is there's 7 others that we know work, right? Or at least work for some people. But I love that you fit in there some way to be creative with your marketing or to be out of the box in that list. So it really is all encompassing for a way that people can focus every week for 10 hours on their marketing. Sort of a really simple rule that people can follow. So let's talk now about the 10 mistakes. And one of the things that I liked about you bringing this up, and honestly, it's probably something that I'm going to thieve and put it in the outro of the podcast, which is, we have a long list of different questions, and I'm not going to take 8 or 10 from people, but I am going to ask magicians and performers for some of their mistakes, because I think that one of the things that keeps people, or that many performers struggle with, is when you fall down, or even when you do the same wrong thing for months. Right? I'm not talking about once. I'm not talking about sending an email with a typo in the header, right? I'm talking about when for months, when you're performing or when you're doing this marketing thing, you're doing something that is really not smart or is not working, or you didn't open your eyes to the fact that it wasn't working. And those are some of the hardest hurdles to get over. Not just the simple, like, oh, I'm so stupid kind of mistakes, but the ones where you're like, how did I not notice this? Or why was I doing this? Or like, and it makes you feel like, am I really fit for this industry if I, make mistakes of this caliber? So I love the idea that you brought up mistakes. And I think it's so important in this world of like marketing and, being a solopreneur, being like an entrepreneur, but it's a 1-person or 2-person and 3-person company. So dealing with, like you mentioned earlier, dealing with mistakes and dealing with failures and putting that into your formulas and schedules and things like that is a really interesting idea. So talk to me a little bit about those 10 mistakes.
So again, to put things into perspective, like I mentioned failure marketing, I think admitting mistakes is the right thing to do, and it's good to embrace them and to learn from them. And I happily share my mistakes with your listeners and try to help them through that. But that doesn't mean that my mistakes are your mistakes as well. You can avoid them by listening and learning from them, but the things that didn't work for me might actually work for you if you do them right. So don't think that those mistakes are like that you're not allowed to go through them as well, and maybe for you they won't be that bad. But I also want to mention that I'm running a business that is a 6-figure business. I grow from like 90K to 120K to 140K, and this year to somewhere around 180K US dollars. And so, like, I want to put this into context so that those marketing mistakes will mean something serious, if that's okay. So the first mistake I did was about my branding of my car. I branded my car. It's not very expensive in Israel. It cost about 1,700 US dollars. And I've heard about, like, it's a full branding, not just the windows or something, all over the place. And I worked a lot with the graphic designer to make it wonderful and beautiful. And I I did 2 big mistakes in branding my car. First of all, like, I live in a very remote place, in a very small village, with 100 families. So most of the time, when my car is not moving, it's not doing any work for me. Um, so that's one element of why my branding my car wasn't very efficient. However, it's more than that. I didn't put anything different on my car that will force people, and I know that force is a hard word, force people to call me. Now, what I mean by that, um, like in the world of marketing, there's the concept of a lead magnet or an opt-in bribe, or basically something you give away in order to encourage people to actually want to call you. And what I did was provide value through the car branding. I'm teaching people how to do a balloon on the car, so they have a reason why they might want to take a picture, because they can learn something and show their kid. But I didn't make like an actual offer for them that will call them. Like, my call to action is not clear enough. And I think that also another thing is that, like, I don't have a way to measure how many people actually saw my car. Even though I do ask people, and will occasionally have someone will say, "Oh yeah, I saw your car," but that doesn't happen as often as it justifies the branding. So if I would do something different, I would change the phone number on my car. That's one thing I would do. And I would actually put some prices on my car, including, some sort of a deal where if you call me now and say burrito, you will get um, a, a special gift or a special deal, and like making people go all in with wanting to call me now, right now, not hesitating, not later. Like, I think that the marketing on the car should be, with awareness to the fact that this is not a billboard, it's a car. If it's not, if you're not, taking that into consideration, that you only have a few seconds for that person before he's going to not see you anymore, then you need to actually make the person that sees your car get into action. And that can be done with either, talking about money, saving them money, or getting them to, when they do call, have an ability to measure that.
Just to highlight there that you mentioned changing the phone number, and just to ask, that was so that you could track it, right? To make it a specific phone number that you can track that people are calling.
Yeah.
Was that why? Okay, cool.
Yeah.
And I love that. It's not just the major lesson of, oh, I put something on my car and maybe I shouldn't have, but the minor lessons of, I didn't come up with a way to track it, or I spend so long focusing on the graphics, but I didn't focus on the most important part, which is, what's the lead magnet? Why are they
Yeah.
going to email me, or whatever the case may be? I
Yeah.
love that.
The second mistake I did was I bought too much stuff. Now, this is related to both balloons and magic props. And just lately, I've been working with the Marie Kondo book with my wife, and arranging our home, cleaning it, getting rid of stuff, so that our environment will be more organized. And I had to throw away literally thousands of dollars of magic props and balloons that I bought because I exaggerated on on guessing how much time I will have to play with those magic tricks and those DVDs and those balloons. So literally thousands and thousands of dollars that I could have saved by not allowing myself to buy stuff that I don't need. So that's definitely a mistake, because if I took that money and invested it, I could have done, 4 high-end, 2K each type of courses that I will go and learn from amazing mentors, and get way, way more value than, all of those magic props that, by the way, by now have decayed. They, like, literally, I cannot use them. They don't look good. The sun is quite bright here in Israel. We have a lot of sunny days, and it's just very hard to keep everything safe. And like, those some of those magic tricks, I really don't want to perform them. Even if they are in good quality, I don't know why I bought them back then. After the lecture I saw in a convention, it looked like a good idea, but in retrospect, that is definitely my second mistake.
I love it. And, at Discourse of Magic, I'm constantly barking about, stop buying tricks. And one of the jokes that I say is like, if you're deep enough into the internet to find, this magic podcast, then you probably have enough magic in your library to make a full career. That doesn't mean that you're not allowed to buy new stuff, but it's just something to be conscious of, and a trap that many magicians fall into, and spend way too much money on tricks and end up in shelves or boxes or lock boxes or shoe boxes collecting dust in closets or whatever the
Yeah,
case may be.
yeah, and that's something that if you're buying something on purpose, with intention for a specific show, a specific customer, then by all means buy it. But yeah, we sometimes it's like emotional eating, where you're eating more just to feel better. Don't emotionally buy magic props. The third mistake I did was a mistake with AdWords. I have been into a competition with a colleague of mine, and like we were joking about how each of us will outrank the other one on AdWords, and we got into a fight, and that fight was painful in the pocket because we both said, I will beat you in AdWords and I will bid more than you will. And I will use bigger budgets and I will get to the first ranking in Google on the ads because of that. And that is like a mistake in so many levels. Um, yeah, like I literally spent a fortune on like thousands of dollars.
A friendly
That
competition.
yeah,
Yeah.
became very fast not a friendly competition, so it was a mistake only also on the friendly level, on the human level, not to go there. But yeah, these days when I teach AdWords, I teach how to find the right keywords that are very cheap and very low on competition, and those are the only keywords these days that I would recommend using AdWords on. Don't use AdWords on where there's a lot of competition, because it's a mature platform that is already expensive, and you can get to the point where one click costs $2 to $5. You just cannot get results in our industry that will make sense. So I only use keywords that are around 20 cents to 100 cents, like up to $1 a click. And even then, I would be very cautious on who is the competition and how much competition is there. And I would prefer finding some very, very niche keyword that is not used a lot, but I'm not competing with someone, head to head.
I do love the advice about using the paid Google. Just, one of the things that I really pride you on in this whole entire interview is that you're very transparent about numbers, which is quite helpful in understanding where things lie in your own magic and where things lie in terms of like how much is a reasonable number of dollars per click or cents per click that is reasonable. And it really puts your advice in perspective. So I love that.
It all goes back to those details that I mentioned. They really do matter, and yeah, I really try to be transparent. I actually expose my income and my income reports at the end of every season of my podcast. So it's something that I'm doing for the last 2 years, and all of those webinars are in the internet. Like you can go back and watch the replays and see the growth of my business season by season. The fourth mistake I did was I did a 90-day social challenge where like I need to do a post every single day for 90 days, and that social challenge didn't include anything that is social about it. So what I mean is it had nice graphics, it had some stories inside, it had all sorts of questions that are there to create some dialogue. But all I did with those posts were nothing in it was actually social. And what I mean by that is that you gotta, like, it's a social media. They call it social media because you can interconnect with other human beings. And that's what you're supposed to do if you want to grow. So I didn't like tag the baker or the colleague or the famous famous, I don't know, actor that I met on the street. I didn't do anything that is actually social, that will actually get new people to look at my brand. It was just, the same people, the same uh, people that are friends with me on Facebook, or that they are, they liked my page. It's just a matter of choice. If you decide to invest in doing something social like Facebook or Instagram, you gotta talk with human beings. You gotta do the extra bit of actually making it real.
And I think a lot of that comes down to not just saying making the post social, but saying like I'm going to be social and reply to comments and be present and interact with your audience when they live in that place. So I love that advice. That's great.
Yeah. The next one is a little bit silly. I've decided that I need to give away to my customers a water bottle made out of silicone with my logo on top. And my train of thought was like, I literally pictured little Timmy drinking more water because I gave him a cool bottle. Um, and mommy Jane is going to see that, and she's going to care so much, so she's going to talk about me again and again. Now, I didn't spend a lot of money on this. It's just a small mistake, but I wanted to share this so that you could see how mistakes can be useful. Um, all of the bottles got confiscated in customs, um, and the authorities, the Israeli customs, they said, prove that people will not die from toxins if they drink from this. Like, prove that it's healthy for them to drink your water with your silicone that I brought from China. Now, to like the bottles, I paid like $250 for them. They wanted about $2,000 in order to do the health tests, so that I could prove that kids won't die from drinking from the Zivi Kivi silicone bottles. So again, details matter. I didn't think properly about bringing so many silicone bottles. In retrospect, it's not even such a clever scenario, about drinking water. Like, I don't think that really kids will drink more water because of that. So yeah, that was
That
my
was very
fifth
funny.
mistake. Sixth mistake that I've made, and this is a little bit more related to the artistic side of things, and that is related to practicing how to practice. Practicing practice. For many years, I've had this attitude of, I have enough customers, so I can practice on real audience, because it's better for me to practice with real audience, right? And occasionally I will have something major go through my show, and I will collect a few kids in my village. They love it when I call them. I do this like twice a year, and I will practice with them performing the new bits or the new show. However, that is not the level of practice that you need to invest if you want to see some really amazed faces. So my point here is that I really wish I would had the practice gene installed in me, and that's something that you built by yourself, practicing how to practice and making that a habit of yours, just like I do with business. I practice business. I love practicing business. I really think that I should have learned how to practice as soon as possible in my career, and if I would have done that, then I think I would have been able to grow even better today.
That's one of the ways to tackle the idea of making the same mistake over and over again. Like if you're making the same mistake over and over again, which happens to me all the time, when you open your eyes to it, it means you're not dedicating enough time to that area and you haven't really learned how to practice or to how to effectively or efficiently work on that thing, so that when the time comes that you're doing it or performing it or doing the marketing or whatever, you don't have enough information or you didn't prepare enough or
Yeah.
whatever the case may be.
The seventh mistake that I've made is something that I figured out only recently. I've been exposed, as after purchasing the magician business podcast and the Kids Entertainer Academy. I started to work on our curriculum and what courses I want to create for KEA, for the Kids Entertainer Academy. And I started to work with some really talented individuals. And they have some skills that are just out of this world. It's just so good to see that. And so the seventh mistake I feel I've made was to not give enough respect to skills in my repertoire. Like I really think that I would be, because I have a good business orientation. If I had now, even just one more skill, it could be juggling, it could be I don't know, even something that is doing a magic trick of a specific kind with cards or whatnot, some manipulation, or some skill that is in a level that is so good that it will, help me in social media. It will help me in all the other tactics on marketing that I use. If I had that skill that it is like in international levels type of skills, apart from my balloons, then I would be actually I will be able to leverage those type of skills very efficiently. And so building those skills can take years sometimes, or maybe even a few months. And, uh, and I want you to know that, with all of my understanding of business and with all of the help that I provide to people, and they get results out of it, I definitely see, one of the mistakes that I did is not working enough on developing skills.
I think that's something that people can use. And one of the things that we keep coming back to is this idea of a solopreneur, or, somebody who is running their business alone, and focusing on having one more important skill can make a massive difference. And me being like just for example, there's different types of groups that I'm happy to do magic for as well. There's different types of magic that I'm able to do, and that allows me to do certain things. My background in teaching allows me to teach magic, which is great, and different aspects like that. So I love the idea of opening up your world to more skills, and that's something that really can act as a lesson for magicians right now. That just opening your eyes to other skills that are adjacent. You want to eat like glass? Do you want to learn how to juggle? Do you want to learn how to, like, there's so many, eat fire? I know I kind of talk about eating things, but do you want, like, there's so many different things that you can learn how to do. Do you want to do something with doves? Do you want to learn grand illusions? There's so many different ways that you can expand your ability and your knowledge, and that means expand so many other things like your repertoire and your audience, and a lot of
Yeah,
incredible things.
but just as a word of caution, I'm not talking about many skills. Like I want one more. Like
Right,
I
right.
want to,
One more
yeah,
skill.
one more that is amazing, right? So like it's better to get, to the level where it's an amazing skill rather than a lot of mediocre skills. The eighth mistake I did was not understanding the importance of links, backlinks on the internet, and that is related to search engine optimization, of course. Um, I had an opportunity, while working in a corporate job, while having a day job, to work on my backlinks without any interruption because I had my salary. I did marketing at the side for my magician hustle, and I didn't know that backlinks are important. Now, they are still important even up to this day. You don't have to use them, but they are still working, and it's just something that, for example, like if people want you to volunteer, you can get a backlink from that. If you're doing some PR stunt, you can get people to give you a backlink, and even up to the point of just be friendly and help your colleagues, and that might lead eventually to a backlink. So not being aware of the backlinks meant for me that I started to collect them only 4 years ago when I became a full timer and learned about it. But if I started a couple of years earlier, I would be in a different position traffic wise.
I think that's great, and that's even something that people don't even know what it is. So I'll just highlight what a backlink is when somebody puts the link to your website on their website, and that helps a lot with SEO. It helps you rank on Google and show up higher, and different things like that. So if that's not something that was in your list of things to do for SEO, then it's definitely something to add, because I know that it's very valuable from what I've learned, and obviously from it being in your top 10 mistakes. So that one was awesome.
Yeah, you need to invest about 25% of your SEO on acquiring backlinks. And they need to be real. They need to be not like spammy, where you just go to some forum or put your link or something. And so the best backlinks are stuff that are a proof that two human beings decided to collaborate and recommend one another. So you actually need to like maybe contact some mommy blogger that talks about education or talks about, I don't know, whatever it is that is relevant to you, and then get her to talk about you. You need a relationship for that. So again, it's not that it's easy to get those backlinks if you want high quality ones, but it's important to be aware of it. Um, and then the ninth mistake is not working and not being like aware enough on the importance of my body. And when I say body, I mean health, of what fuel I put into this body, what do I eat, and what do I do to my fitness. um, in the last 6 months or so, I've started running long form. Like I started with a race that is a 10 kilometers race. It's 6.6 miles, and with a time limit and with a time frame of you have 2 months. You need to reach a milestone of being able to run that in less than 100 minutes. And after accomplishing that race and achieving that, overcoming that challenge, I started to challenge myself with a 15K, which is like 9.5 or so miles type of run. And after doing that, I started these days to work on a CrossFit gym, because it's winter and it's a little bit harder to run outside. Um, those 6 months of me caring about what do I eat and what do I do with my body um, were amazing. And I didn't do that for like 3.5 years before that. And I get so much focus in business as a result, and so much energy in business and in selling my services as a result of me feeling great about myself, like appreciating my body for being a tool for myself. I'm more energetic while driving to gigs. I managed to go through some pretty hard days with myself because I eat well and because I exercise. I really think we should look at our body as one of the very important tools that we have in the toolkit as performers, and neglecting our bodies is my ninth mistake.
Keeping your fitness in mind is important for everyone, but again, it's something that is so big for people who are coming at working sort of on their own. It's just them, or them and one person, and you have to design your lifestyle. You have to design how many hours you're putting into work and how many hours you're putting into the rest of your life, and all these different things. And it can be easy to just have all your time absorbed into work and not really work and accomplish a lot of things.
Yeah. And the 10th mistake I did, and by all means, don't think that this is like the least important one or the most important one. There was no real order in the way that I wrote down those 10 mistakes. But the 10th mistake is related to my balance with my wife, my spouse, and my kids. And I do give a lot of attention to my kids. They see me way more than ever. Because I'm not in the corporate world, but understanding that my balance with my wife and my feelings about myself, like that I take good care of my kids, the effect of that on my business, on my energy level, on my ability to know that I have someone to back me up when I need to go to this gig in the middle of the night or to drive very far away or whatnot, to know that people are waiting for me, that love me and care about me, and that we're in a very good relationship all the time. That is huge. It just creates huge impact. And I want to be very practical here. So I'm talking about stuff like having a date night every single week. This is like, we actually these days have scheduled, we know, two date nights every week, one which is outside of the home and one inside the home, where we just go on some schedules and work on the budget together and just sit down and talk and drink coffee or tea. Um, but doing those dates nights is like a miracle worker in terms of making me feel that I have amazing support and backup, and that I have the ability to focus later on getting results in my business. And the same goes with my kids. I write down a daily post-it note for them, and it takes 5 minutes. It's not a big deal, but for them to get this small piece of post-it note that says something funny or something clever, or just to show them that you care and think about them, that is something that has brought me so much focus in the business, and I wish I've started that earlier.
Yeah, one of the things here that's really sticking out, one of the trends that's showing up in this episode is, taking real care and taking real notice of how you spend your time, all the hours of your day, because so much of that has an effect on your mood and how you feel about yourself and what you're doing has such an effect on your efficiency and your effectiveness and your good ideas and everything of that sort. So, really looking at your life and setting aside time for things that are important for you. So if you've got a family, maybe that's setting some time aside for your wife and your kids. If you're dating, it's a time to do that. If you're whatever it is, but finding the different parts of your life that give you joy, or that are valuable or important to you, and taking the time to set aside time for it. And it seems like so many of the things that we can learn from this episode have to do with scheduling the things that are important to you, both important in your business world and outside of your business world, in your life world, because that has such a strong correlation to your business world and how the success grows there.
Yeah, I want to emphasize it even further. Like, if you only fix one thing in your life right now, or one mistake that you take that I did, and you make sure that you don't repeat that, or you fix that in your life. Oh man, guys, take this one, the one about the balance with your spouse. It was so, like, it literally felt for me on the business level that I had a ceiling above me, and that ceiling of how much money I can make was there for me for so many years, until I did that, until I fixed my balance and my relationship and stopped neglecting it. And the moment I started to do that and to understand how important it is, that's when the money started to appear in my life, and the business started to actually get to the point where it's interesting in a serious level. I want to say, it became so important for me that I literally started a podcast on it called, the Generous Marriage Podcast. It's not something that I do alone. I actually found a partner that is a counselor for married couples, a licensed counselor from California, and these days he lives in Israel, and we have a podcast, and we do a lot in education, in helping people understand how important it is to go on date nights, and how important it is to be generous with your spouse and to create generosity around your relationship. But my reasoning is simply the fact that it brought me so much business growth. Obviously, there's other important reasons why you want to have a good connection with your spouse, but if you need something to motivate you, then that is definitely something you need to know, and you can learn more about that on generousmarriage.com.
That's great, and it's great that something like that, something so outside of the box to the world of like magic and business, had such a great effect on your your business and your life. So that's really cool. We're getting towards the end of the episode, and we have a whole bunch of different wrap up questions to give you. So the first is, what is something in 2018, 2019 in the world of magic that you like, and something in the world of magic that you don't like right now?
So I'm not someone that is very active on looking for trends that are related to what other people are doing. So what I care about is what I'm doing with my magic business. And so right now, I would say that close up magic is my next challenge. I started to work with a coach that is coaching me on how to do better magic for performing to adults. And it's both of the things that you mentioned. It's exciting me. It's something that I'm interested in finding out what is more powerful and when to use the more powerful close-up magic tricks. At the same time, it also is something that is scary to me, like the young um, generation of people that I will perform to, like teenagers and stuff, and adults. Some of them are they are they are a different type of audience that I need to adjust to, and like because I've been performing to families more, like, and now I'm um, creating the option for me to perform better and in a way that I will be proud of to adults as well. So that is what is exciting me.
I love that. That's a great answer to the question, and it's also a great piece of illumination that you're not buried in the world of magic, but instead, more interested in the things that you're doing and creating, and the way that people are responding to that, and how you're changing to work with what you're interested in right now. The next thing I wanted to ask is a recommendation. So, in order to keep this podcast going on for eternity, each guest recommends another guest that we absolutely must have on the podcast.
Um, I would recommend Matan Rosenberg. He's a close-up magician. He's my coach in close-up magic. He performs in 6 different languages, and his understanding of the world of magic is very deep, and it's just an amazing experience to talk with him. So Matan Rosenberg, I can connect you guys on Facebook. um, he's literally a scholar in close-up magic, and it's just wonderful to see how he leverages different languages and high-end skills to give a gift to an audience through amazement and through giving them a moment of awe.
That's very cool, and some kind words about close-up magic. So I'm very interested to hear about that. The last sort of wrap-up question is, one of the things that we implemented at the very beginning of this podcast is called a take-home point, and it's this thought that we've been chatting for over an hour and a half about so many different aspects, and if there's some way or some idea or some highlight in the episode that really stuck out to you, or some way to summarize the whole thing, and I take a moment to reflect on that as well. So one of the things for me that really stuck out was, if you're diving into doing magic full time, or starting to think about it, or you've been doing it for a while, or whatever the case may be, if you're living in that world, then taking an honest look at the way that you spend the hours in your day, and it's something that I constantly need to focus on and readjust and whatever, but thinking about the amount of time that you spend hours in and however you slice it, your day, your week, via the 10-hour rule, or your month, it's such an important thing to keep focused on and mindful of. And so many of the different bits of your advice had so much to do with when to do things, and maybe focusing on things that aren't counterintuitive, but things that help your business, like focusing on your health, or spending time with your wife, or just thinking about things like the 10-hour rule, or keeping in mind all of those different marketing tactics. So that was very cool for me. What was a highlight, or one specific thing that you're hoping that people take home from this episode?
Here's what I want you to take home. I really want you to take home the concept of being an eternal learner. Every single thing that I mentioned will require you to learn new stuff. And once you reach, and even the mistakes that I feel about what I did as mistakes are related to places where I stopped learning, like learning a new skill or something like that, or practicing how to practice. So my overarching concept that I noticed now while you're talking is the fact that it's really important to stop wearing the hat of I know it all, and always wear the other hat that you have, or at least you used to have a few years ago or when you were a kid, and that is the eternal learner hat. And if you are willing to learn everything you need to, then you will get results eventually if you apply the time and apply the efforts. And I think that means that you cannot allow yourself to say, hey, I don't need to learn that.
One of the things that you spoke about so much in this episode are different mentalities and different ways to think and approaches, and that really helps. So I think that's one to keep in mind in this idea of always being open to learn, always being open to try new things, because there's unlimited different things you can try for marketing and unlimited different magic you can do, and just it's all so unlimited that being open is going to be a great way to grow. The last and final thing is plugs. So I know that you now, and I don't know if people sort of kept track of that story in there, but it started with you starting the Balloon Artist podcast, and then since then you have purchased and grew and cleaned up, and or maybe not cleaned up is the right word, but you purchased and grew and changed the Magician Business podcast, as well as the Kids Entertainer Academy, or the Kids Entertainment podcast. So just interesting to see that journey. So the last section is plug. So can you talk a little bit about all of these different podcasts, and a simple way to put it is the free and paid resources that you have for people who have been listening to this and have been really jiving with a lot of the information that you're saying.
So first of all, if people just want to learn a little bit about all the things that I do, there is one place to do that, and that is kivimedia.co. Kivimedia.co is, from my point of view, my legacy. It's a chain of schools, and it's a chain of podcasts, and they are all under my ownership, but I treat it as a chain, and I you can learn more about what I do there, and from there you will easily find the different podcasts and different schools. But basically, we do a lot of education for free in the balloonartistpodcast.com. You can listen to the podcast and learn about marketing of balloons and learn about techniques that work with balloon world. In balloonartistcollege.com, we have entire courses that are free and available for people so that they could check us out and see if we can bring them value into their lives. In the kidsentertainerhub.com, we have an entire blog and a podcast, which is the Kids Entertainer Podcast, which again, it gives so much value over there. And definitely, if you're interested in kids entertaining, that's a place you want to check out. And yes, we do have the Kids Entertainer Academy, which is a paid resource. It's very affordable. It's like ridiculously affordable. And you get access to full-blown courses and lectures, and you can learn new income vectors, and like even go into kids entertainment, and do it surrounded by people that care about you. But I think the most important thing is to understand the why. And don't go into the Kids Entertainer Academy unless what you want is, to work with us on making you the best version of yourself as a kids entertainer. And the same goes with Balloon Artist College. Don't go there unless you really want to go into the journey of becoming a balloon boss, like being a person that is really proficient with balloons. So we know what is our why. We really care about helping people become either their best version as themselves, or becoming a balloon boss in their journey. And again, the Generous Marriage podcast is under Kiwi Media, under the brand, and that's just if you want to get some improvement in your relationship with your spouse.
That's awesome. It's a lot of resources, and I think that people can really see from this that you're sharing information that you've not only learned from your learning and not only learned from your interviewing on the podcast, but also obviously from your experience. And I think that it's quite clear that some of these resources are going to be packed full of the exact type of information because, to be honest, there's so much that you said in this episode that are things that I'm going to implement, and most specifically the one that really rang true to me is the 10-hour rule, because that's something that's super going to help me, because I find myself working on whichever marketing thing is the one that's at my forefront for however long it is until I think I do it. And that idea of setting aside that time, which helps make sure that the quality is upkept, and that just has such a simple way of tracking. You're putting 10 hours, you're working on it, you can see if it's working, and all of these different things. That's something I'm going to be implementing. So clearly you've got the knowledge. I would encourage people to go even just take a look or check out these resources, and specifically check out these podcasts. I know they're all good. I've listened to some episodes of all of them, but I just want to mention the Magician Business podcast one more time, because it's there, unfortunately. And if you have more people poking you for it, I'd love for you to make more episodes of that thing. But there are so many incredible episodes up, and just like this, it's a free podcast. So I really encourage people to go check that out as an incredible resource to get started. And most importantly, because this is something that it did for you and I, is just open your eyes and your ears and your world to that you can be a full-time magician, and that can be a part of your life, because I know it's something that it's sort of done for me. So if you're not there yet and you want to be there, go start listening a little bit to that podcast, as well as checking out some of these other incredible resources.
And thank you, Jonah, for the opportunity to mention everything here.
I'm happy to, glad to, and like I said at the very beginning, there's so many different aspects of what you do with creating podcasts and helping people and building courses, which is something that I'm working towards doing right now. Just because we learn the same things over and over again, and this platform is an ability to teach, and courses are an ability to work hand to hand. And I'm just really, really interested in the way that you are doing all these different things, and I see us working together a ton, or at least communicating a ton more in the future about this, because, it's so crazy. It was sort of mind blowing for me to realize that, you ran so many of the other podcasts about the entertainment industry, about, balloon and magic and all of this, like kids entertainment. I was in all these Facebook groups, and there sort of came a moment that I realized that you were behind them all. So it was very cool. And so much of the inspiration that has come to me has come from stuff that I had no idea that you were behind, but I now know, and that's really awesome. So thank you so much for joining us on this episode. And a big thank you to everybody at home for listening. And, a note, and I say this usually, but, it's especially true today, where if you are a performer full-time or working on it, whatever, there is a master class of information in this episode. Like, there's so much knowledge in this episode that you have what to go start trying doing, attempting doing, and get some wins for your business. So a big thank you to you guys for listening, and a big, huge thank you to you, Zivi, for joining us on the podcast.
Thank you so much. I hope to meet with you soon online.
I do too. And listen, I go to Israel semi-regularly. So next time I'm there, we'll meet up for some coffee.
Oh man, coffee on me. Yeah, black coffee on me.
Good deal. I'm going to add milk, but you can have black coffee.
Cool.
Okay, thank you so much. And we'll see everyone next Thursday. Well, there you go. I hope that you liked it, and I hope that you learned something. Here's two quick things. So number one, if you want to make sure that you implement something that you learned in this episode, take a moment right now, pull up your phone, and put it in your calendar, like schedule it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to block out 10 hours in my next week to work on Instagram. So if you want to do that, block out some time in your calendar, 10 hours to work on a marketing effort. And the second thing is this: I'm going to be doing a contest very soon, if not going on right now. I'm not exactly sure when this episode's coming out. So make sure that you are checking out the Discourse in Magic Instagram and Facebook, and that you've headed to the website, because there's going to be a chance to win over $200 worth of magic books, and one person's going to win it. So one person's going to get a grand new edition, a really cool new addition to their library. So go check it out and come be a part of the contest. And thanks for being here, and see you guys online, and see you next Thursday.